We also watched a Goofy movie because for some reason she was in the mood to watch a Goofy movie. A Goofy movie is good. I remember watching it as a kid. I think it was... So I learned a little bit from her about it. Apparently, this movie was essentially sent out to die. It was basically sabotaged because Jeffrey Katzenberg, who was a high-up exec at Disney for a very long time, he always wanted to do a movie about Goofy. He always wanted to do a Goofy-focused movie. And this was put into production, and it was set to release, but Jeffrey Katzenberg left during that point in time, and went on very infamously to found DreamWorks. And then who came in? Who came in afterwards? Was it Eisner? I think it was Eisner or something. And whoever came in after him, I'm pretty sure it was Eisner, was just like, fuck that guy, and made just the spite decision to essentially release this into theaters with no marketing at all. And then by some miracle, so it bombed in theaters. And then by some miracle, it hit DVD and probably VHS at that time. VHS, like home release and reruns on television. And it just blew up there. Like it did. It probably has made all of its money back and more just based off of reruns and DVD sales and stuff like that. It is. I remember seeing this on television. They reran it all the time on like Disney Channel or whatever. And I think I'm pretty sure I had it on VHS or something growing up, or like my grandma did, something like that. So this was a movie that really. It's always just been around in my life, and even the funny thing is it's a very 90s movie, but even when I was growing up in like the 2000s, a lot of kids I went to school with also loved this movie and quoted it and thought it was awesome. So has this strange history. It's really not a movie that deserved to fail. I think it's pretty good. I think it's a good movie. It's sweet. It's a nice like family picture. One thing that I was thinking about was how 90s it is, which I mentioned a moment ago. It is very, very 90s. And a lot of people would call it dated. And I was thinking about how the fact that something is dated is often used as an insult. And I don't know if I really agree with it. I'm editing my current video, and there's a point where I call something dated. And I think that I use it in a different way from a lot of other people. So when I use the phrase dated, especially as a pejorative, I mean it as in, like, you play an old game, and there's something in it that you go, yeah, we figured out how to do that way better. Like, you go play an old third-person shooter, and it's got that behind the back camera angle that's just like, it's just a little, it makes sense. You can tell that it made sense at the time, but as soon as you play something that's like over the shoulder, you're like, oh, this is like this is actually way better. This is way more convenient feeling. Like the middle of the screen, like where I'm aiming, is not blocked off by my character. That's one of those things that's like dated. That's what I mean. And it's not necessarily like a huge indictment. It's just like, well, yeah, I don't know. Like we figured out how to do stuff like that in a better way. There's stuff that feels, I use it to mean like, yeah, it feels outdated in that sort of sense. I think a lot of people use dated in the sense that just because something is emblematic of its time, that it is bad, or that's inherently a bad thing. Like, oh my god, it's so dated. They're using all this slang and stuff. And I don't understand why. I think that's a stupid idea. I don't know why. Like, what, are you going to read the Odyssey and go, oh, it's so dated. Oh my god, they're like on wooden boats. They're rowing on boats. Oh my god, like what year is this? It's like, it was like 300 BC. That's what year it was. When was the Odyssey written? I'm actually not sure. Odyssey written. 750 to 650. Okay, most historians agree it was 750 to 650 BCE. It's like, yeah, dude, it was 750 BC. I think that you know what and here's what I think it is. I think it's that people are afraid of dying. I think when you look at something like the Odyssey, it is so far in the past, and maybe the Odyssey is not a great example because it deals with a lot of like fantastical mythological things. But let's look at like the Iliad, which is a little bit, obviously the Iliad is still very fantastical, but for the most part it's just like about a war that's happening, right? You look at something like that, and it is so far in the past that it's practically a fantasy. Like, for the human mind, the Iliad and Lord of the Rings are practically the same thing. There isn't much of a distinction between them. But the 90s? Oh, the 90s? I know what the 90s is. Maybe I grew up in the 90s. And when I see 90s stuff, when I hear 90s slang, I see something from that era, it just reminds me of how much time has passed and that I'm going to get old. And I think that's what it is. I'm playing armchair psychologist, and I'm saying that when people call things dated, I think it's because they're afraid of dying, and seeing something that is from the past in a recognizable way freaks them out because it gives them a sense of perspective. And I'm telling you that you can watch a Goofy movie and you do not have to have a panic attack over your fear of death, okay? I am telling you that right. Someone had to be brave. Someone had to stand up. I'm sitting down. But someone had to sit down in front of a microphone and get on a podcast and say this, okay? The Goofy movie is pretty good. I don't have that much else to say about it.